Hey there, folks. If you're new here, I'm Hero Girl. I love Magic the Gathering, and Magic is a huge part of my life. And I can't really talk about my love for Magic without talking about Commander. I fell in love with Commander the second I heard about it. You're telling me that I get to play with a partner? A headliner that makes me feel like Yugi playing the Dark Magician? And the deck is restricted to exactly their colors, so it's a thematic process? And I only need one copy of each card because it's singleton? And I get to play multiplayer with my friends? it's perfect! It is literally my ideal format. I was hooked! I can't stop brewing decks. I used to write articles. I even hosted some odd 150 episodes on a podcast called Commander Cast. But these days, I don't really get to play Commander as much as I used to. It used to be that I would get to go to the game shop and spend 5-7 hours on a weekend just jamming games with friends. These days, I'm lucky if I get to spend 1 or 2 hours playing a single game. And that makes it hard to connect with my hobby. Magic the Gathering is a social event. It's a chance to get together and hang out with people, play cards, talk, while also showing off the project that you've been working on all week. It used to be I would go out, play with friends, come back, take the feedback of playing in those games, upgrade my deck, do some tuning, maybe hunt down some cheap singles to pump things up, and then go back and do it all again. But especially since the pandemic hit, that opportunity just doesn't exist anymore. So if I want to continue to enjoy and play Magic, I have to go digital. So I started playing Magic Arena. Arena does not have Commander, but it does have Brawl. Brawl is kind of like Commander, if you squint at it. Instead of multiplayer, it's a one-on-one format. Both players start at 25 rather than Commander's 40. Is it 40 life? Thank you. For some reason I had 30 in the script. Wait, is it Dual Commander that has 30? Oh, just two-headed giant in general. Okay, thank you. I love you. You still build a 100 card deck, but this time your commander can be a legendary creature or a planeswalker, which honestly opens up a lot of cool new decks to try. Put something together, go to the menu, hit the button, and you'll be queued into a match. There's no penalty for losing, and it counts towards your daily missions. Anytime that I'm feeling in the mood to play Magic, I can jam games and brew decks. Sometimes I even stream my games to show off some of the decks I've been working on. It's not much, but it keeps Magic in my heart.
Hell is real, and some of us belong there.
Ever since I started playing Brawl, something weird's been happening. You see, when you talk about Brawl, there's a term that tends to come up. Whether you're in Discord, or going on Reddit, or listening to YouTube, you're gonna hear about hell.
Well, that's what we learned about. I sure as hell can't tell you we learned about hell unless I say hell, can I?
The only bans in Brawl are for cards that prevent players from using their commanders. Cards like Pithy Needle, which turn off Planeswalker abilities, or cards that prevent players from casting cards from the command zone. So there has to be a hell queue to contain the most powerful commanders, otherwise that's all players would get matched against. This is where people play Mono-Wrath Control. This is where people turbo ramp into Ulamog every game. This is where Paradox Engine goes full infinite. This is where you have to see Ragavan come down turn 1 every single time. This is where the bird lives. Could you imagine having to play against Nadu 5 times in a row? I've had to play Nadu 5 times in a row. One of the things I like to try and do in Brawl is build my commander decks on Arena. I've got a Farika deck that I absolutely love. This was a devotion to multiplayer type deck, a deck with a lot of sentimental value to me. So if I can build that in Arena, I would actually be really happy. But no matter what I do, I keep getting paired against Hellq commanders like Ugin. And I have no idea why. Look at these 2 cards! There is no way in Erebos' Underworld that they're on the same level. So I started researching, and there is a reason. There's a really good reason why we keep seeing commanders from Hellq. And that's because Hellq doesn't exist.
It's totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up.
Arena's developers regularly host Q&As in WotC's official Discord for Magic, and they've confirmed multiple times that there is no Hellq. They don't separate out the broken commanders from the rest of the pool. Instead, they've programmed a matchmaker that looks at your deck weight and your ranking to give you what it believes is going to be a fair fight. Okay, so what does that mean? What's deck weight and how do I change it? In Brawl, every card has a point value, and your deck is weighed by the sum value of those points. As a quick example, let's pretend that Ragavan is 10 points, and a basic mountain is 1 point. If you made a Ragavan deck with 99 mountains, your total is 109 points. When you queue in, the matchmaker is going to look for other opponents that match your 109 point deck as closely as possible. It doesn't matter how the decks are built, it's trying to balance the scales as best as it can. So even though Farika is a dirtly do-nothing card, then the high point value in the rest of my deck can pair me up against similar weighted decks. So, how do we tell what cards have what weights?
That's the neat thing. You don't.
In 2024, Reddit users discovered a programming error in the deck builder. There was a client-side error telling players that they couldn't use a certain deck because its weight was too low, by which it meant it couldn't figure out how to evaluate Mormor Vegan 97 lands. By using a certain combination of cards, Reddit reverse engineered the exact weights for every card in Brawl. It's on a spreadsheet that I've linked down below if you want to check it out. But remember, those weights are probably not accurate anymore. The developers have since rebalanced the point values, and that sheet doesn't have the sets that came out since the leak. So if you're trying to figure out how to avoid, say, Tifa or Vivi from the latest Final Fantasy set, you're gonna be out of luck, buddy. Deck weights are supposed to help players get the matches they want. If someone wants to build a low power deck, they can, and they'll get a good match out of it. But it takes more than pulling out strong, heavily weighted cards to get that, because you still have to deal with the matchmaking results. Matchmaking results, or MMR for short, are a form of ELO. ELO refers to a player's skill level as determined by an algorithm. This algorithm specifically is commonly used for ranking chess players, but the term gets used pretty much anywhere competition crosses gaming. Hell, even games like Synod 2 Nerdle use ELO as a way to decide pairings and rewards. And we have ELO in Brawl too. Your wins, your losses, and even the amount of games you've played is being tracked so that you can be paired against someone who is, roughly speaking, about as good as you are. And that ELO stays with you even if you swap decks, make new ones, or delete all of your builds. And it's worth noting that the Brawl matchmaker is tracking only your Brawl matches. If you just 7-0'd a draft, that's not going to follow you into Brawl.
You have been weighed, you have been measured, and you have been found wanting.
In March 2025, Wizards of the Coast posted an article that said they were happy with how well the matchmaker is doing. Currently, 85% of all Brawl matches give both players a close to 50% chance to win based on their commander choice. The following month, Ian, one of Arena's lead developers, confirmed that the algorithm was working exactly as intended. That's it. There's no way to game the system. There's no way to avoid Hell Q, because Hell Q doesn't exist. It's just an algorithm trying to pair people up.
It's a total fabrication. It never happened. It never happened.
Even though the developers have told us how the matchmaking system works, they haven't told us everything about the matchmaking system because they know that gamers are gonna game and they're gonna try and optimize for more favorable matchups. And they're right! People are still trying to crack the code just because they can.
Waiting millions of pieces of data in the blink of an eye, the Gambletron 2000 says the winner is Cincinnati by 200 points. Why, you worthless hunk of junk?
I was talking to someone who said that they'd been playing Brawl and using decks that didn't have any fetch lands, and they kept getting paired against people who also didn't have any fetch lands. So their theory was that the matchmaker was pairing people together who didn't use fetch lands as a measurement of the power of their decks. But that got disproven immediately when I told them, hey, I've played games without fetch lands, and I have played against people with fetch lands. So, like, immediately, that's already one thing destroying their theory. But on the other hand, their data is also incomplete. Unless you're playing cards that specifically let you look through and record your opponent's entire deck, how do you know they just didn't draw any of their fetch lands? Even monocolored decks have reasons to run fetch lands. If you're running blue and black, even green, maybe you're running in it for delve cards or mulch cards. You want to get extra landfalls. Tifa does that all the time.
Decided in 5 minutes, supposing we're wrong.
Supposing we're wrong. Yeah. Supposing this whole building should fall down on my head, you can suppose anything.
That's right.
Yes, there are still things about the matchmaker that we don't know how they work. But trying to figure out exactly what else goes into the algorithm, the matchmaker, would take so much more data than any one person has access to. There are aggregate websites like untapped.gg that collect all of their users' data. They gather how many people are playing those decks, and it can get a rough idea of what the metagame looks like. But even then, those numbers still don't tell the whole story. Unless you have a way to gain perfect data, there's just no way to confirm anything. Let's talk real quick about observation bias. Observation bias is essentially what happens when you go into a situation with a preconceived belief. You already believe something to be true, and then you start making observations and you start testing, you start recording data, all because you believe that thing is true, and that affects how you collect your data.
That's specious reasoning, Dad.
Thank you, honey.
By your logic, I could claim that this rock keeps tigers away.
Oh, how does it work?
It doesn't work.
Uh-huh.
It's just a stupid rock.
Uh-huh.
But I don't see any tigers around here, do you?
Lisa, I want to buy your rock.
I made a video about playing Final Fantasy XIV as an Elezen. Since then, there's been a lot more Elezen players. Did I set a trend? Or am I just more aware of the Elezens that were already there? Did the Browns lose because I forgot to wear my lucky jersey? Or are they just one of the most mismanaged clubs in the NFL?
Do you understand that it is actually statistically harder for a team to be this consistently bad than it is for them to occasionally accidentally be good?
Is a commander, like Ugin, actually overpowered? Or am I losing because I'm playing a mid-range pile that can't win fast enough to overcome how good Ugin can be at stabilizing from parity?
In studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
But looking at it another way, the matchmaker is consistent only 85% of the time. The other 15%, you're still just as likely to get paired against those Hell Q commanders, and that's possible just from raw numbers. Here's a hypothetical. If 100 people are queued into Brawl, 10 people have pet decks they play for fun, and 90 people are playing optimized competitive builds, then the ideal is that those 10 casuals will get paired against each other. But what if you're a casual player and there are no other casuals that match your deck weight? What if the only people available to play are the 90 that want to play with optimized decks? What if we flip those numbers so that there's 90 casuals and 10 optimized? Your odds of getting paired with a casual is better, but there's still a 10% chance of getting paired with an optimized deck. The matchmaker doesn't care. It sees only the weight and the matchmaking. There's other factors here too. Like, what if a new set just came out? People love novelty. There's probably at least some percentage that change commanders with the seasons and play whatever happens to be new and neat. How many people are still going to be playing Vivi by the end of this season and we get Edge of Eternities? What if a particular commander is just that popular? Tifa is a famous character from the Final Fantasy series, and people love one-shot cards. Nadu is probably one of the most powerful cards in recent memory. Often getting rid of him means giving the opponent a free card. And what Magic player can say no to the best 3 cards in Magic?
Draw a card.
Even if you figured out how to manipulate your deck perfectly, if you log on, play 10 games straight, and every person you play just happened to be a member of Nadu Nation, your deck weight is going to mean absolutely nothing because you just became a statistical outlier. You are Nadu George, and you are wildly throwing off our estimate for how often the average Farika enjoyer has to play against Nadu. Everything I've described gets confused for Hell Q. I think the confusion itself is reasonable. The only way for people to access this information is to deliberately look for it. That information is obscure and hard to find at best. Believe me, I would know. I had to try and find it all for this damn video. But if Hell Q isn't real, where did it come from? Someone had to have figured this out at some point, right? Why would so many people talk about Hell Q if Hell Q wasn't a real thing?
What is Hell Q? People throw this term around a lot. The origin of Hell Q, by the way, is me. Hi, I'm Amy, the Amazonian, and I talk about Hell Q.
This is Amy. She streams Brawl on Twitch, and she posts her deck list on YouTube. When the weights were leaked, she posted a video to share her thoughts.
Hell is other people, and Hell Q originates from League of Legends, where people who had high salt scores, we'll call it, or low honor, would be matching up against each other because really the worst people, the people who are intentionally throwing games, they're being bad teammates, they're being insulting, should all have to play with each other. Hell Q. It's where you queue up with other people in hell because it's terrible. I applied that to Brawl as a way of saying, yeah, when they unbanned Golos and they made Brawl its own queue, they said, yeah, we're going to manually apply certain matchmaking, so really strong commanders have to play against each other. And that's going to be a lot of the very either high-powered commanders or ones with insane game plan strategies. Things Teferi, Golos, Kinnan, all of those are Hell Q.
That's it. That's all there is to it. She was the origin of Hellq. And that's really surprising, honestly. Especially about the League stuff. Granted, I haven't played League of Legends in over 10 years. The last time I played, Echo was a brand new character and Kayle still had her sweet chunky armor. But I don't remember there being a salt score. I messaged Amy on Blue Sky for some elaboration, and she said, where Hellq came from was my partner and I joking about being trash in League of Legends. Low elo Q. Not sure who originated the term for League of Legends, but I definitely heard it through my friends that I played with. Or we came up with it on our own. That basically means she was wrong and Hellq does not come from League, right? I tried digging a little deeper, but I can't find any evidence that the low honor that players get from being toxic has any effect on League's matchmaker. The most, at least according to Riot, is that having a low honor score turns off certain features and makes you ineligible for seasonal rewards. Just to be clear, this is not a call-out post. I think this was Amy having a ton of thoughts all at once and trying to make a video as soon as possible, which doesn't lend itself well to fact-checking. But she's a reasonably large YouTuber and currently one of, if not the, largest Brawl streamers. I believe her when she says Hellq started with her using as an inside joke, and it's easier still to imagine her audience picking up on it and spreading across the internet.
It's an urban legend that never happened. No way. We got you. Not a chance.
And yet, there's something telling about how Amy compares Brawl to League of Legends. Something that I think explains why people are so ready to believe in Hellq. I started playing Brawl because I wanted to play Commander, but couldn't. The hardest lesson I've had to learn is that Brawl is not Commander. In so many ways, it's the complete opposite. WotC released a bracket system for Commander, one of their biggest paper formats, to make it easier for players to talk about what their decks do and what their expectations are for the game. People are encouraged to talk about the cards they like. They're encouraged to ask people for permission to play their silver border cards, or their custom cards, or their proxies. If you want to play a competitive match that ends on turn 3, you have a chance to work that out with the table beforehand. If you want to spend 3 hours building up resources like you're at a LAN party playing Red Alert 2, you can ask for that. But you can't do that on Arena. Brawl is considered Arena's premier casual format. It's second only to Standard, which has been king pretty much since it was called Type 2. And if you remember that, don't forget to ask for the seniors discount next time you pick up your home runs. But casual doesn't mean doesn't care about winning. It just means that there isn't a rank system. There's no mythic, gold, platinum tier to aspire to in Brawl. It's literally just you win and play. There's no seasonal rewards, there's no extra bonuses, no fancy titles or glams. I mean, I guess technically there are achievement titles, but that's something else entirely. Arena gives you a knife, throws you into a pit with another player, and says, good luck, have fun. Except sometimes, instead of a knife, you brought a noodle, which is great when the other guy also has a noodle, and significantly worse when they have a gun. There's no social contract here. There's no chat while you're playing, which, as League has demonstrated, is probably a good thing. It's faceless, devoid of interaction, and when the game's done, there are no handshakes to offer. There's an explosion, some gold, and then back into the pit with whoever's next. Like Magic on Arena, League of Legends is a competitive game. But unlike Arena, League is a 5v5 MOBA game. You live and die by how well you work together. Or if you're me, you only ever lose because the jungler fucking disappeared. The low elo queue Amy's referring to is what happens when low-ranked players have to play each other. It's often described as what we pro gamers call an absolute shit show, with players who are too inexperienced to know how to play or what their role on the team is supposed to be. It's kind of like watching bad football. The linemen don't know they're supposed to block, the receiver doesn't know he's supposed to catch, the team doesn't know that they aren't supposed to let the town down, and the owner doesn't know he's not supposed to fire his head coach every 3 years, and you're not supposed to trade your first rounds for every... Sorry, that one got away from me. The point is, even if you're someone who knows what you're supposed to be doing, if you know how to last hit minions, what order you're supposed to buy gear in, you're still getting paired with people who don't know that. Low elo queue is hell queue because you, the obviously only good player on your team, are currently going through hell just to get away from these fuckers. Your wins and losses are shackled to what everyone else does. So how are you supposed to win and get out of here?
People like this ruin the game for everybody. Really didn't want to waste 45 minutes today with a teammate that was going to kill me every few seconds.
Hell is real, and some of us belong there because we want to play Zorius control decks or Turbo Ramp.
If you're trying to fix your deck weight so you don't have to fight blue-white control, you won't have to deal with Teferi. But what about Alquist Proft? What about Raf Capuchin or Aaron Giada? What about, Gem Lightfoot Sky Explorer? That's a 4-cost uncommon that I've seen people use as their commander for blue-white control, sometimes specifically to aim for lower matchmaking. Usually because it's, kind of just a cool card that plays a little differently. Is it fun as long as they're using a less powerful option? Or are you still going to be annoyed that your opponent is playing counterspell deck? I have a Malcolm Alluring Siren deck that has no rares aside from the commander itself. It is literally nothing but commons and uncommons, and it is still counterspell deck. Is that better or worse than if it was filled with all of the high-powered rare cards like Mana Drain? You can't get away from these types of decks because they exist across the spectrum.
Welcome to the new world. God save you, if it is right that he should do so.
Arena's matchmaking algorithm is succeeding 85% of the time at making sure both players get the games they want. If both players have a 50% chance at winning, then it's an even match, right? But that's just according to deck weight. Deck weight can't figure out how good your deck is, or how good you are. All of it is just numbers, and numbers can lie. When I built the Commander version of Freaka, I called it Devotion to Multiplayer, and filled it with cards that scaled with the amount of people playing. The bigger the pod, the stronger she became. She's a fun political tool. She can punish aggressive decks by creating surprise blockers, and build long-term value through effects like Constellation and Morbid. I can take a turn off to play her without hurting my tempo, because I know the other 3 players are also trying to set up for the long game. The fact that she requires Devotion ends up being a feature, because it means she dodges a lot of the exile-based creature sweepers. But here, in the pit, she's a liability. She's a card that, at best, is a 5/5 indestructible creature with some incidental graveyard hate. Except, there's so much removal in Brawl, either she gets removed, or her Devotion enablers get removed. And I spent a whole turn doing nothing, and getting to do even less. I might get frustrated with Brawl if I'm brewing a deck and I go up against a hard control deck and I get absolutely destroyed. I don't get to do a single thing that I'm trying to brew the deck towards. Yeah, I get angry, I get frustrated. My wife can attest to how often I start cursing. Is that fun? I have a deck built for the specific purpose of farming creature kills, and it's also a Theros god. I built Klothys as a mostly red control deck that bolts every creature that my opponent plays, while she eats everything in the graveyard and wins eventually. Is my opponent having fun? Probably not, but I'm getting 500 gold either way. And if they want to concede early, then I'm getting gold for winning too. The matchmaker cannot compensate for this. It sees the weights and says, good enough. But those are the parameters that make deck building such a fun challenge. How can I win without rares? Can we recreate different deck ideas from other formats? How do I make Freaka good?
The burglar trips the alarm, the house raises from its foundations, and runs down the street and around the corner to safety.
The puzzle is so frustrating at times, but it's a good frustration. Sometimes. Usually. Because when I figure out how to make a deck work, it feels amazing. What does it matter? Why does it matter if you blame a make-believe void when you're not having fun? It's okay to be frustrated with a format. It's okay for there to be decks that you or I don't like playing against. There are a lot of powerful decks full of equally powerful cards out there, and we don't have to play against them. The concede button is right there. But are you satisfied with that? Or would you rather get better at the game? You don't get that improvement if your reaction to losing is, oh, I didn't buy a mastery pass, and so Arena is rigged against me. I'm being punished for trying to play a fun deck when everyone else is on try-hard gaming mode. I'm not immune to it. I've had days where I tilt out and feel like I deserve to win because whatever I'm doing is cooler.
Your turn.
Huh?
You play! You play!
If you're stuck in bronze, it's not just because your team sucks. That's a factor, but you're on this team too. You have to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. Where are you struggling? What's something you can practice or experiment with? How do you adapt? When do you play cautiously and when should you be aggressive? It's the same way with Magic. Magic, for all of the issues that it's had, all of the bannings that it's had in standards, all of the card design mistakes, it is a surprisingly, shockingly well-designed and balanced game. Yeah, there are times when bans and nerfs are necessary for the health of a format, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's not like a Vanguard or a Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the only way the company can sell new sets is by selling cards that are power creeping everything else. I've gone through that loop with Vanguard. I've gone from regular to G to V to whatever the over trigger series set is. Power scaling happens in Magic, but it feels like everything has counterplay. Yes, you don't like mana drain. You can include a ton of cards that either remove cards from their hand, like Thoughtseize, or you can include cards that say your stuff can't be countered, like Surak. That is counterplay. You can include Cavern of Souls, which control decks absolutely hate. But even the control decks have things like Ghost Quarter that just remove the Cavern of Souls. And there's a Boseiju that you can just discard. That way you can play around counter magic to remove things that might be protected by counter magic. But you can't do any of that if you don't know those are your options. Or if you can't afford them, but that's a discussion for another day. I think part of why people default to blaming HellQ is because there aren't enough resources for them to study. Brawl might be the second biggest format on Arena, but that's on Arena. A quick search will bring up deck showcases, maybe some set reviews, and that's it. It's all content. You can't really learn from content. Like, I can go online to MTG Goldfish or EDH Rec and look up a deck list, but that's not going to teach me how to play it or how to deck build from it. Compare that to Commander, where there are videos and podcasts. There are match videos and highlights where people talk back and forth about their decisions, about their thought processes. And all of that helps you become a better player. You become a student of the game and you improve. And the thing that I love is that discussion, is the improvement. And that's the kind of thing that I think we need more of in Brawl. So I want to make a promise. I like making Magic videos. I like talking about Magic. I like talking about Brawl. I want to focus on making more videos where we talk about actual deck building process and the game building process. So that's what I'm going to do. Please look forward to future videos where we just talk about Magic. I don't consider myself to be an expert, but if no one else is going to put those kinds of videos out, someone has to be the first. So that sounds like something you want to stick around for. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button, maybe hit a like, leave a comment for the types of things that you would like some help with regards to Brawl. I've got a lot more to say on the subject. This isn't going to be the last one, and I'll see you next time. Same hero time, same hero channel.